everyone. So I had the idea to kind of revisit some of my older projects and talk about lessons that I've learned, things that I would do differently if I redid them now. This channel is a couple years old now, and I have a decent amount of experience terrain building, so I just kind of wanted to do a video on that. I thought it might be an interesting video to do. I posted a community poll asking if you guys would be interested in that, and most of you said you would, so here's the video. I decided to revisit 3 projects. It's going to be the 3 most popular projects by view count that I've done, which are my Modular Hills, my 7 Fantastic Pipes video, and my Mos Eisley terrain video. First up, we got my Modular Hills. If you aren't familiar with this project, it's basically a Mod Podge layered on top of some stonework that's carved into some foam. In the video, I go into detail about how I get these textures on the sides of the foam board, and also how I kind of like take a knife and I'll just go in on like a really sharp angle to create kind of like a layered stone look. I have 2 sets of these. This is the larger set of the 2. This is also the second set that I made. This is the one that was actually like made in the video. The other set is more of like a brownish tone, and it kind of suits maps like this a little better. Not that these don't look decent on a map like this, but I didn't make smaller pieces for the other set. I'd love to do that at some point. I just haven't really gotten around to it yet, and I've gotten a ton of use out of this set. I use this set, if you watch my battle reports, I use these on almost every battle report. I mean, if you don't follow exactly how I did it, at least make something similar to this, because they're very useful. I don't really have much of a structured way of like looking at these, but like as far as durability, they've held up pretty well. I keep them in bins, so a lot of the time they're kind of rubbing against each other a little bit. I try and avoid that when I'm putting them away. Sometimes with the larger pieces, I'll put like some newspaper or like cardboard in between the 2 large pieces when I'm storing them, just to kind of keep them from rubbing against each other, because they almost have like a sandpaper texture to them, and I feel like if you're really jostling them around a lot as you're moving them around, it's gonna start chipping. Speaking of chips, there are a few sections, like right here, where when I was coating these, I did miss a few spots. It'd be really easy to just take some black paint or some Mod Podge and black paint and just go over and fill those in. The biggest thing I think I would change with this project is I used too many straight edges. More so than not, I feel like that kind of limits my options when I'm setting up a map. What I was trying to do when I made the project was I was trying to like add a rock texture to those straight edges to make it less obvious that it was a straight edge. And I don't think that I cut enough out of that surface to really like hide the fact that that's like the corner of the foam board. So I think one thing that I would do is I would maybe like cut off this section. Maybe if I have like a piece like this, just round that out, or with something like this, maybe just like cut in a little bit more. Just try to hide those flat edges a little better. That's one suggestion I have with this project. I usually end up like butting this up against the corner of the map, because like you can't really put that in the center of the map because you have this awkward flat edge. I mean, depending on like what else you're using it with, it might be beneficial. Like say you have like a temple or something that kind of goes along with this set, and maybe it's like made to like sit in like a section like this, then it would work. So yeah, like unless you like really have like a plan with it, I would try and avoid those straight edges. I'm still really happy with the look of it. I think I did a good job. I know a lot of people, when they do stonework, they're all about like using like 2 or 3 different color washes to create a little bit more color variety, like you see in some stone naturally, but it's not like every single stone formation you see has that. A lot of the times it's kind of like layered in larger areas based off of like which prehistoric era that stone's from, you know. However you want to do your stone, just don't feel like you need to add washes to it to create different colors. For me, a lot of it just depends on like what maps I plan on using it with, because I just want it to visually look decent with those maps. And that's one of the reasons I went with gray, because yeah, gray is about as universal as it gets. That's why one of the reasons that I've used this so much, like almost every battle report, you'll see these, and that's because they just go with everything so well because they're gray. The brown set goes pretty well with most stuff too. Yeah, I mean, it really just depends what look you're going for. As far as like these smaller stones, I made them to kind of butt up against the outer edge of the larger stones so that they could be piled up sort of like this and create little steps. These are 1-inch high, and these pieces are 2-inch high pieces of foam. I think that works really well. I'd like to make more of these. Like, I would love to have maybe like 30 of these, whereas right now I have maybe 1, 6, 7. I have 11 of these right now. The more of these, the better, honestly. They aren't hard to make, and they definitely add a lot to the set. I feel like I prefer stones that are about this size, or like this size even. Some of these, like this one, it's so big. I think if I was doing this again, I would maybe cut this in half. I don't think I would go much bigger than this if I was making this set again. I would take pieces like this, kind of cut like a zigzag shape in there, and then if I want to put them together, I can just butt them up against each other, and yeah, it just gives you a lot more options for like stacking stuff. It's also harder to store bigger pieces like that. In general, like this set takes up a really good amount of space. Storage wise, I have 2 large bins that I have full of these, and that's another reason that I haven't made more of them. It's just because they do take up so much space, but they are really useful again. Yeah, that's really my only complaint. I'm still happy with the way I painted it. I'm happy with the texturing. I used grout. I think that still is holding up pretty well. And yeah, it's been year and a half, still holding up well. Highly recommend it. This is my best performing video by far. I wish they all performed this well. Then I could actually consider doing this full time, but yeah. Is what it is. Thanks for watching this video if you did. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to do more projects like this in the future, but I need to get more space. There's just so many terrain projects that I need to do just to kind of get a more rounded selection of terrain to use. So that's mainly why I haven't really made more of these. Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to leave me a comment and ask away. Next up, we have my pipes. I did 7 different types of pipes for this video. I don't remember how long exactly it took me to do this project, but it was quite an endeavor. It was very ambitious. Yeah, I'll go through each one of these. I had 2 modular pipelines that I did as well. I'll talk about them last. In no particular order, first up we have these concrete pipes. They're made of PVC, but they're supposed to be like large concrete pipes for like drainage. Yeah, I made a couple of those. They've gotten quite a bit of use. Anytime they kind of make sense in the setting, I end up using them. They're great scatter terrain. I really like them. Highly recommend making something like this. As far as like the craftsmanship, I think I could have maybe done a better job matching the concrete color. Ended up being a little darker than I think most concrete usually is. It's also a little thinner than I think it would look in the real world, but yeah, it's not so bad that it's unrecognizable. I think it comes across as a concrete tube that's just like sitting on like a construction site or something, or just kind of got left somewhere. I did some longer pipes. These are just like poster board. I wrapped them around like, it's not a toilet paper roll, but it's basically like the same material. These are way too thin. And you can really see like the bends in the poster board. But I wrapped the poster board around it in order to get that little like crease. These little nubs, that's how they socket the pipes together when they're like actually constructing the pipeline. So that's what that's supposed to be if you don't know. And then I also made these. These are thicker rolls. These are made out of rolls for a roll of stickers that I got at my day job. And I really like the thickness of this. I think it's about how it would be in real life if it was like shrunk down. And then I just like carved away an edge there to create the little male nub. So kind of similar, but I think this looks a little better. If I were to make this again, I'd maybe make them a little shorter. And again, like I think I could have matched the color a little better. It's kind of hard to say like how much weathering to do. Like if you're looking at construction sites, usually these are pretty clean. They don't have like dirt all over them. Like I have one of these, but like when you're doing like miniature terrain, you just kind of want to make it a little more interesting to look at, I guess. But maybe I would just kind of be a little more subtle about that. If I were remaking these, maybe put some like damage on it, maybe some like gun holes or something, or maybe some like graffiti or something would be nice to add to that. Then I got my pen pipes. I'm still really happy with these. I did like a subtle rust effect on these. I think that looks pretty good. Maybe I could have like added a little bit more on the top here, but it is nice to have stuff that isn't completely rusted. Same with these pipes. I'm really happy with the way the rust looks. And then I put these like square boards in between them on the bottom, and then use some stir sticks for the second layer. These are made to be stacked to create like complete line of sight coverage for a barricade, depending on like how you want to set them up. But I almost always use them like this, or as like a stepping stool. One thing that probably doesn't come across on the camera is, I think if I remember correctly, for most varnishes, I think you should probably wait at least like a day or two before spraying them with any sort of varnish. And I think I hit these a little too soon. And what happens sometimes is you'll get like cracks. You'll get kind of like a peeling effect in the paint. And there are some spots where you can see that. And that's kind of been the bane of my existence with a lot of these projects. I usually hide it pretty well, but like that does happen a lot. And then I got these like weird white spots too. If I made these again, I don't even know if I would varnish them, but if I did, I would wait a couple days. I also kind of would have liked to put some little pieces of wood on the ends here to kind of like hold the pipes in place. The original source material that I was using when I created these to get my colors right and everything had little wedges on the sides here. That's one little detail that I think wouldn't take too long to add. I may have gone a little bit overboard with the green on the wood here, but yeah, I mean, it really depends how weathered you want it to look. If you leave a piece of lumber out in the forest or whatever, it's going to get pretty green pretty quick. It's not like it looks completely odd. It's a little bit more subtle on these. Pretty happy with the pen pipes. They get a lot of use too. Then you got these. This is just straws with a stir stick I-beam frame. I really like this a lot. I want to make a lot more of these. And I have a lot of straws. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Kind of a theme here. I don't really have a lot of free times. I mean, it really wouldn't take too long. They're pretty easy to make, honestly. Yeah, highly recommend this project. I like this. I like the way this came out. This is a great piece of scatter terrain, a great way to use up straws. I like to repurpose stuff when I can. Next up, we got my PEX pipes. Not really a huge fan of these. I hardly ever use them. These are made out of coffee stir straws, I believe, which are a lot smaller than regular plastic straws. I mean, they fit the setting a little better. I found a reference picture online where they will kind of strap these together in like a hex pattern, and that's kind of what I was going for with this. And the biggest thing that I don't like about these is the strap. I used a zip tie for that, and I had a really hard time like getting that to glue onto there. I think it was the super glue I was using just didn't really do a great job. I try and avoid situations where I'm gluing something down that like doesn't want to be glued down, it wants to pull away. And then with super glue, you get that like hazy look. So I never went back and like repainted these to kind of hide that. It took a lot of super glue to get that like held down in shape, and like just trying to like bend it to fit around that to actually look like a strap. I just don't think the effect is really convincing. Unless you're like using these types of straws on a regular basis, I wouldn't suggest making something like this. You need so many of them, and you almost have to like buy a box of them or like steal them from work or something in order to get that many. Whereas with something like this, like I'm getting these straws just in my daily life. So I feel like I'm actually recycling, but with this, I'm just like buying stuff just to use it. I mean, that might not be the case for everybody. It really depends. But yeah, I would use something else for this strap if I was doing this again. As far as like what I would use, I've been saving this stuff up. It's actually the type of material that they use to strap boxes together. If it's like a heavy product, I think I wouldn't mind trying this stuff out, see if this would work any better. I don't know if it would or not. I mean, it does bend pretty well, and I think it would take glue. It's got a lot of texture to it, but I haven't tried it yet. I also think this stuff would work really well for like windows, like kind of like gothic looking fantasy windows, I guess. I also think you could just wrap like a thin piece of cardboard around this, glue that down. I think that would work just as well. Whereas like, I mean, I've never seen a strap that looks like that. That's just a weird look. Not a fan of these. This is the modular pipeline that I made. This is out of PVC and CPVC. I mean, if you watch the video, you'll see how I made them, but you can socket them together to kind of create like a little modular pipeline. It works pretty well. And then I made some supports out of foam board to kind of put in here to help hold it at the right height. As you can see, I made 2 different color sets. Yeah, I can't really say that this set has gotten a lot of use. I have maybe used this in 1 or 2 videos. They're so time consuming to set up because you do have to assemble them, figure out how you want things laid out, unassemble them, change the layout, you know, it takes time. And I've found that while it is fun to do, if I'm going to have to assemble something like this and then unassemble it, I'm probably just not going to use it at all. But I will say that I do like this set. It's very functional. I'm working on some more industrial buildings, and I'm hoping that once I have more industrial terrain, I'm hoping that I can start using these more because they'll make more sense with that type of map. When I was putting this video together, this was one of the last pipe projects that I made. I really rushed through the paint job on this. I think that's really obvious when you look at it. I didn't do a very good job painting this. I would actually like to do a video where I revisit this project, just this pipe project alone, and maybe add a few pieces to it, add some greebles, maybe add some sort of like access ramp or something that like goes over top of it. And another thing I really want to do is I want to repaint these and just do a much more subtle weathering job on them, because it's just like way too much weathering, way too much dirt, just because of the way that these go together. Like the corner pieces at least aren't always going to be facing the right direction. So it's not always going to have like dirt on the bottom. In particular, the pieces that like go into the ground, like there's really no good way to like weather those. You can kind of position everything the right way, but like, again, that takes extra time. That's an extra step that you have to do. You're going to have things like this that just look kind of weird. So I would repaint this entire set. I would do a much more subtle weathering job on them. Maybe put a little bit more work into these support pieces. They're supposed to be concrete, but yeah. They are pretty functional, but I think they could look a little better. And I think I did mention in the video that like this was just supposed to be like a very basic set, and you can always add stuff to it if you want. So like the core concept I think is pretty good. Most of these fit together pretty snugly. I do like this set, but again, it's just very time consuming to set these up. And usually when I'm setting up a table, you know, I'm just kind of moving things around, trying to figure out where I want stuff, and to like have to like put these down and be like, nah, that doesn't look quite right. Maybe I want it like this, and you have to like unassemble it, reassemble it. Anything like that, I just try and avoid making from now on. Like I don't know. I feel like there's kind of like a cutoff point for modularity where it just becomes too modular, and it's just more of a pain than it is a convenience. And this kind of like it's borderline. I will say that I just keep these in a bag, and they are very durable, especially if you go with a white color scheme, because they're white anyway, or at least like an off-white. So you can't really chip them. But yeah, again, I have been thinking about revisiting this project. And then I did a 3D printed pipeline. I forget the name of the company that made this. I'll put it on screen if I can find it. I know they do like weekly emails where they'll just give away like a free STL once a week. I think this is a nice set. I have a lot of the same issues that I have with the other set as far as like modularity and it just being like a pain to set up. And then these pieces, some of them are kind of loose. So like if you're jostling the board around, it's going to just kind of fall apart and stuff like that. It's not a huge problem, but like if you're filming a battle report, you don't want things jostling around and falling apart really easily. That's one reason that this set doesn't get used very often. I like the paint job. When it comes to pipelines, I think there's just too much detail in a lot of the pipelines out there. Whereas like with this, there's not enough detail. This is kind of like the other extreme where it's like most pipelines don't have that much detail in them. But I do like this set. Maybe someday it'll get used in a battle report. I think the weathering works a lot better on these. If I was doing them nowadays, I would probably add a little bit more rust. Whereas like I mainly just used black, I would maybe throw some browns in there, maybe throw some pigments in there as well to kind of add some rust effects. Just some subtle rust effects. I tend to go a little crazy with the rust, and I'm really trying to work on that. With that, again, there's also a fine line. You can go overboard pretty quick. And finally, we have my Mos Eisley set. This building here was a separate video, but I decided to add it in anyway because it's made to go with this set. And yeah, most of the stuff that I'm going to say about this stuff kind of applies to this one as well. I am into Star Wars Legion. I wish I had more time to play it. John's into it as well, and we would like to film some battle reports for it at some point. But yeah, like with many things, it's just a matter of finding the time for it. But we both really like that game. It's got some solid mechanics, and I highly recommend it. Really hoping that I can find the time to do more content on it in the future. Yeah, as far as this terrain set, this was very much an experimental set. I was just going for like a vague Star Wars, Mos Eisley, Tatooine aesthetic. I wasn't really trying to like mimic the buildings in the actual movies or TV shows now. I was just trying to make buildings that kind of looked like they like fit in with that setting. And I think that's pretty successful. I mean, a lot of it is the color scheme and just like the alien nature of the buildings. Like it's not like normal modern construction. It's very like avant-garde almost, like just odd shapes, odd proportions, stuff you don't see in daily life. And then with like a tan color scheme with a little bit of like metallics, a little bit of black and brown. It's going to make it look like it fits in with the Tatooine setting. But yeah, these are almost entirely constructed out of like plastic bottles, plastic bins and stuff. I also used a fair amount of foam board to build out like this doorway here and this wraparound handrail here. And then for stuff like the smokestacks, it's just like various random like plastic things. If you ever have those like pump soap dispenser bottles, if you take those apart, you can find a lot of stuff like this on the inside that works really well as a greeble. And I use those a lot. I think this is like a camera mount or something. I'm not going to say what exactly like every piece is, but just know that it's almost entirely made out of recycled materials. I really like working on projects like this. I think recycling for me is a big part of the hobby. When I'm crafting, I like to recycle as much as I can. I mean, obviously it doesn't always make sense with the project. There's kind of like a balance between wanting it to look good and then also like maybe wanting to like repurpose some plastic bits you have. I think this was the first project that I was trying out draping tissue paper to create like an interesting little detail piece. And I've used that a few times. If you look at like construction sites or just like pretty much any setting, you almost always see like cloth draped over something. And I think it's a really fun thing to add to most projects. I wasn't really like thinking too much about the architecture of these. I was just kind of like having fun, just figuring out like how to fit different bottles together, different things that I have, just trying to figure out how I could like piece them together, very much figuring it out as I go. If I were to revisit this project, I think I would just focus on maybe one building at a time. I think I would put a little bit more effort into trying to hide the fact that these are just recycled bottles and whatnot, and maybe just try and make the buildings make a little bit more sense from like a usability standpoint. Because this was kind of supposed to be like a garage or something. Like I said, I was just throwing stuff together, just having fun, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I like how the weathering came out. I think I would probably lean into that a little bit more. Maybe try and like build up some little like piles of sand in some of the corners just to kind of blend the pieces together a little bit more. I'm not sure if I would add like an actual base to them or not, but I think that could help to anchor them in place a little better. I used a fair amount of hot glue with this project. Like here you can see there's a pretty good seam there. Yeah, I would probably use construction adhesive or maybe just use some putty to kind of blend some of these sections together a little bit better. I really like this rounded piece. I think if I were making this again, I would cut off the rim here. This is like a Chinese food container lid. And I think if I had cut that off, so you could see these windows a little better, because that rim hides these windows unless you're looking at it like straight on almost. And I think that's a really interesting feature of this piece. It would also make it a lot less obvious that this is a lid. And I don't know if I would have made this either. I think I would just leave this off and just have it flat. Yeah, I wouldn't mind making some more of these, honestly. That lip does kind of work as like a base, because this is like two of those Chinese takeout containers, like one's flipped upside down. So this is also the lip of one of those. I think I would probably build that up with sand a little more to hide that lip and just make it look like the sand's kind of blown up against that a little bit more. With this one, I think instead of having this piece like come out long ways, I think I would flip it so it kind of sits flush with this. and I would have the door on this side instead. I think that would look a little bit more like an actual usable building. I would probably get rid of this. You might remember that I made like a vat with like a grate over top of it, and I used some black UV resin to just kind of create like some kind of like reservoir or like sewage treatment thing or something like that. But yeah, anyway, I used UV resin for that, and I had like a UV flashlight to cure it, but it ended up not curing fully. And I keep this set in a plastic bin, and the one time I opened up the plastic bin, and that resin had like leaked out. That was the first time I did that, and it's probably the last time. I don't trust using UV resin, and I don't recommend using UV resin. I also made this tiny little like relay tower, whatever you want to call it. I really like this. I would love to make like a couple of these too as well. I think that would be a fun project. Plus it's like less surface area to cover with greebles. Again, like I think this is a little too obvious that this is a cap here and then on the bottom here as well. Instead of putting that there, I think I would probably just base the thing and just like have some sand blown up. I think that would really help to anchor some of these pieces in place to make them look a little bit more lived in and like they're an actual place. And this was supposed to be like an air traffic control tower. Functionally, it kind of works as like a raised gun platform, but like visually, I'm really not a huge fan of how it looks. At least the top portion here, I would almost like to like break this whole section off and just like redo it. Maybe like break this off, have like a slightly higher platform here. Maybe have that like connected to another building or something. It's too high, and I think it just looks weird. Yeah, I was trying to use window tint for these windows, and I don't think that worked really well. It's really bubbly. You can see all the like dents and stuff in it. I wouldn't use that technique again. Like a lot of these like bits and bobs that I put on the top here, they just keep coming off. Doing stuff like this, I would probably like try and find a way to like actually pin it to the piece. And I wouldn't mind like maybe breaking this off, maybe using the top of this as a different building where these windows are a little bit closer to the ground. This one does have a little bit more of a base to it. And once again, like the rest of them, some more sand piled up in those corners I think would really help. This whole section here, it's kind of weird to me. Like this could have definitely been two separate structures. I really don't know why I attached these. Like this should be a separate piece and this should be a separate piece. So yeah, if I was cutting this apart, I would make this a separate piece, this a separate piece, and this would also be a separate piece. Yeah, the more I think about it, I really don't know why I made this all one piece here. It's kind of weird. With this one, it's just a wacky structure. I don't know. I kind of like it, but it just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense visually, but it does kind of work with an alien setting like this. I think there's a lot of interesting ideas here. Like I really like this doorway. I love this. It's almost like a spaceship hatch or something. I like this split level detail here with this wraparound window. That's what that's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a window. And then also using, this is like a little piece of a circuit board as like an antenna or whatever on a roof. This is like a damp rid container, which I thought was kind of cool. It almost looks like it has a bunch of like tiny window slits in it. Like again, if I were to kind of redo this project, I think I would borrow a lot of these ideas and just try and like execute them a little better. Overall, it's a really fun set. I learned a lot making this set. I would really like to do more projects like this where they're almost entirely made up of recycled materials. I think when you're building wargaming terrain, it's a great opportunity to use up some plastic bits that would end up in a landfill or something otherwise. And yeah, whenever you can repurpose stuff, why not, right? And I am into 3D printing as well. I just hope that there's always a place in the hobby for doing stuff like this. Like many things within the wargaming hobby, it's kind of a hobby within itself. Once again, if you have any questions about it, let me know in the comments. If you want to see me do more videos like this, where I kind of revisit older projects and talk about them, let me know. We'll say if this video gets 300 likes, then I will consider doing another one. Hopefully you guys found this useful, maybe interesting, maybe learned something. A big thanks to my patrons for supporting this channel. If you're interested in supporting what I do here, Patreon membership is a great way to do that. I also have some affiliate shops if you want to check those out. All the links are going to be in the description. Yeah, that's all for now. Hope you guys have a good day, and I will see you later.